Birmingham, July 1995. One of the longest heat waves since records began. As air quality worsens, many of Britain's 3 million asthmatics are fighting for breath. In the West Midlands, asthma is increasing faster than anywhere else in Britain. Cutting Edge spent the summer in Birmingham to uncover the human cost of serious asthma.
Somebody's house, a female, bad asthma attack. We've come ahead of the ambulance. There's a doctor and nurse with the ambulance. They're arriving now.
Birmingham's City Hospital. Each day at least 5 asthma emergencies are brought here. Today the temperature topped 84 degrees. A 71-year-old woman has collapsed on the way home from bingo. Catherine O'Donovan is having an asthma attack. According to recent research, our genetic makeup determines whether or not we're liable to get asthma.
Brilliant. Put your arms across your chest. That's it. Yep. It's all right.
Hello there, sweetheart. Don't worry. If you're suffering an asthma attack, what's actually going on in the lungs is that you get this spasm. It's a bit like getting cramp in a muscle, in your calf muscle, so you get this tightness. And when it gets very tight, the air is not actually going in and out. And so people actually feel they cannot breathe. Their pulse rate goes up, their respiratory rate, their breathing rate goes up. They panic, it's frightening, and they actually feel that they're going to die.
Oh, I'm going to pop this off, madam. We're just going to give you another nebuliser. Diazepam. Moxitet. There's no Atrovent in there.
The nebulizer pumps oxygen and drugs into Catherine's lungs, but she's now close to total exhaustion.
Have a look at the
you can hear
medication.
me. Just squeeze my hand if you can hear me, all right? Can you hear me?
A massive dose of drugs is administered to try and open up her airways.
19 and 1-4.
Crisis point. Oxygen levels in Catherine's blood are now dangerously low. She faces death. It's a risky treatment of last resort, but she'll have to be anaesthetised and put on a ventilator.
Yes, I think Jackie.
Jackie, can you call me?
Yeah, we'll do it straight away. We don't really know the actual cause of asthma, but what asthma is, it's an allergic response to certain trigger factors. The most common trigger of asthma is virus infection, so a common cold. But as well as that, we have exercise, and that's just not going upstairs, that's sport as well. We have smoking, household pets and other family pets. We have house dust mite, temperature change, so the extremes of temperature, hot and cold, excitement, so child going to a birthday party, very excited, triggers an asthma, and then we have also the extreme where people are very anxious, and that will trigger an asthma attack as well. And of course we have the pollen in the hay fever season, which can also trigger asthma. Catherine doesn't always remember her treatment. I think she just sometimes forgets.
Blood sample, going to take a blood sample from your right wrist here, all right.
Obviously, if you forget your regular treatment, that is much more likely to make your asthma worse.
Sit you right up, Kathleen. All right, sweetheart. Try to stay sitting bolt upright for me, love. Not mine, it's
Catherine, I'm going to have a little listen to your chest. My name's Dr. Thompson, the anaesthetist. When I arrived, I found Mrs. O'Donovan was unable to talk to me at all, and she was no longer squeezing her hand on command. I decided then that there was no further medical treatment that would improve her asthma, and the only option left would be to put her onto a ventilator and control her breathing that way.
I was more concerned about the suction up.
I'm going to lie a little bit further back, Catherine. Going to change this mask for another one.
Temporary.
All right. Deep breaths through that. It's a very difficult treatment if it gets that severe. And it carries a fairly high risk of death. Well done. And the drunk arm. Can you give those? All right, you'll be drifting off to sleep now, Catherine. The risk of placing a tube into the airway is that sometimes it can worsen the asthma to such an extent that it's impossible to inflate the lungs by simply compressing the bag with your hands. Okay, can we give IT a ring? Let them know.
After over an hour of emergency treatment, Catherine's condition stabilizes, but her life is still in danger. A mechanical ventilator will now breathe for her. It'll be another 5 days before Catherine comes round.
The government's urging drivers to leave their cars at home as the heatwave covering Britain sends pollution levels sky high. Temperatures are expected to reach 34 degrees, that's 95 Fahrenheit today, and the hot weather's expected to continue throughout the week. Cars are the main source of gases.
As the summer gets hotter, the pollution gets worse. Car fumes are yet another trigger factor for asthma.
Now more on that Department of the Environment leaflet, which has just been published, urging motorists to leave their cars at home if they can during hot weather because of air pollution.
10 days later, Catherine's back home. The attack has totally changed her attitude to asthma.
Well, I never really gave it much thought before. You know, just went along with it. Just took me inhalers, took me nebulizers, took whatever I had to take and hope for the best. But now, I won't go anywhere now with, because I know like it can happen again like that. Well, I'm sure it can. But it was one time I'd take no roses, I'd just take my puffer and off I go to shops or get me hair done or something. But I won't do that now again.
A warning we should heed well there, I believe. Jimmy Franks in the flying eye, Jim?
Yeah, that's we're just above the Spaghetti Junction, A38M Aston Expressway, and as I look down, the A38M Aston Expressway looking good, running well into Birmingham city centre.
Is that like your special puffer? I haven't got your orange one or your green one, but I've got a blue one. You have to remember to shake it first. Right. Are you going to stand up and do it for me?
More than 1 million children have asthma, twice as many as 20 years ago.
Or shall I hold it? Do you squirt it or does Daddy squirt it?
Now 5, Paul Latham has been asthmatic since birth. Today he's at Tricia Weller's clinic for a checkup.
That is brilliant. Stop, 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 stop.
But in the morning he has a good cough like a...
To bring up any phlegm?
Yeah, like an old man, such with a bad chest as you put down to. He's like that in the morning.
Because of course Jenny's dad had an awful chest, didn't he?
A granddad, though.
Granddad, yes.
Yeah, he had a very bad chest, and it was... sometimes I look at him and he's coughing, and I can think back to when...
Oh, Fred.
Oh, Fred had it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's not very nice at all.
Many children, as they get older, their asthma tends to sort of disappear. But one has to remember it is a possibility that it could return at some stage. Did Paul miss any more school because of his asthma?
Yeah, well, that time you mentioned there.
Yeah, when it was bad again.
About 8 days for that.
So he missed 8 days then?
Yeah. Out of 310 school days, he only completed 48 full.
48?
48 days out of 310 school.
And of course you had that letter, didn't you, from the school authorities, the education authorities. Well, I mean, if you have any further problems, we can get the community paediatricians to write, we can get his chest specialist to write, we can get other people to write, so there shouldn't be a problem. But if there is, let me know, or come and see the doctor and we'll sort it out. All right? So don't worry, they won't take you to court.
Asthma runs in Paul's family. His mother and both his sisters have it, though not as badly as he does.
When he's running about the playground, he complains that his chest is hurting him. He doesn't say it's asthma. He just says it's hurting him, and he needs his inhalers. When running up and down the stairs here, he gets very breathless, and he says, my chest is hurting. You give him the inhaler, and he'll stay for maybe an hour while they take effect. And then, of course, when they take effect, he's out again. But if there's an episode where his asthma is out of control, he has to take 4 tablets every day for a week, and then go back to be examined again.
The worstest part, I think, about a child having an asthma attack is when you actually see them on the nebuliser. Because they start panicking, which you have to try and calm them down. Then they'll see you panicking, which makes them panic more. So you have to keep yourself calm as well as keeping them calm.
We had to physically hold him down. The doctor was at one end of the setter, cradling his head with a mask. Jennifer had his middle part of his body and I had his legs. And we physically had to hold him down to give it him. And as he was crying, they have to breathe, and they was breathing the nebulizer in.
I was petrified. Because, like Paul said, that was the worstest that we actually saw him. And I don't know, when he wouldn't have the mask on, I would literally turn around and say to Austin, just put it on his face, just, you know, hold his head and just put it on his face.
He actually couldn't do anything, he was just lifeless, as if he was on the brink of death, really.
Emily Castle's first attack happened 2 years ago.
It was very, very frightening that you have to sit and watch somebody you love, your daughter, suffering, and that you cannot do anything about it at all. And you can go to all the doctors, you can listen to all their advice, and you can do everything that you can, but it's still not enough.
There's one thing here which is very, very poignant as far as I'm concerned. This is what every asthmatic child seems to have, and it was her peak flow diary, and she was very meticulous in completing it. And did you cough today? Did you wheeze today? Were you short of breath today? Did your asthma wake you at night? And there you are. She ticks them day after day after day. I mean, it's agonising to look at it, but it just reminds me of what she and what we also went through. This is the last calendar that she ever completed. She put down quite meticulously. She was in hospital for those 2 days, and then she was off school on the Friday. She went to badminton horse show on the Saturday. Monday was a half term, and guides on the Tuesday, and then on the 10th she was going to go for a ride with Alice, but never made it.
Birmingham's inner city contains some of the most deprived areas of Britain. Unemployment is high and housing conditions are poor. A report out today reveals that people living in areas like this are in most danger of being hospitalised with asthma.
Our report has revealed a clear link between poverty and severe disabling asthma. We know that around 200,000 people live with disability caused by asthma, and we also have revealed in this report that the poorer you are, the more severe your asthma is likely to be.
The housing around here, particularly the tower blocks and some of the masonettes, are often very damp. There's mould as well, there's inadequate heating, and while they don't perhaps directly cause the asthma, it's obviously a trigger factor for many. We have some slightly better housing around here, and in fact, although there is better housing, unless you've actually got the money to afford the heating, you still have similar problems. And there are some houses just over here where we had a patient who had cockroaches, and it's known that cockroaches can trigger an asthma reaction in some people. The problem was the council came in and they fumigated the flat, but it's usually the flat next door where they live. And of course the fumigation fumes can again trigger asthma, so you have to be very careful.
At Paul Latham's primary school nearby, 1 in 4 children is asthmatic. Traffic pollution and bad housing are just 2 of the reasons why low-income groups are so badly hit by the disease.
It's a well-known fact that smoking is associated with social deprivation, and that the poorer people are, the more likely they are to smoke in order to have some form of support and relaxation. Now, smoking is an important contributor to childhood asthma, and also it is an important trigger of asthma symptoms. So it may well be that there's some form of interaction there which is related to the poverty and therefore making the asthma worse.
I'm more aware when it's bad, obviously not to smoke on the balcony or outside, or in a totally different room. But we have been told by a doctor that it doesn't matter if you smoke in a different room, it actually penetrates the plaster and the brickwork. And it's hard to believe that, but we have been told that.
I would certainly not allow people to smoke in the house, because smoking is one of the worst things to have around somebody with a respiratory problem.
10 miles from the city centre, Janet Saul's 2 sons both suffer from asthma. Now 15, Jonathan's been asthmatic since he was 2½. His condition is just as bad as Paul Latham's. But families further up the social scale tend to cope better with the problems of asthma.
If he needs to, he'll also use his nebulizer. It's a much stronger dose, and it's a much easier way of taking the drug, because it's actually works like a pump, and the medication mystifies, and you just sit and it goes down into the lungs and, well, into the bronchial tubes where it needs to be. If Jonathan was having an attack, I'd use one of these little nebules and break it open and place the liquid inside. The liquid would go inside there, and then you put that on. It's pretty simple. Put the mask on. He sits with the mask on his face, and you just set it up and start it. It's very, very noisy, and so you're really glad when it's finished.
That's one of the biggest things for asthma, nebuliser is, and I'm lucky enough to have one at home, because if I didn't have a nebuliser, I'd be constantly in and out of hospital.
It's obviously very important to people with severe asthma, but they're not prescribable at the moment, and they're expensive. They can cost around £100 or more. Now, we've already seen that there's a close correlation between poverty and severe asthma, and it follows that the people who are most likely to be in need of nebulised treatment are going to be those who find it hardest to afford them. So we think it's very important that nebulisers should be made prescribable where they are recommended by the doctor.
Well, to get a nebuliser at home, I mean, they're quite expensive. I mean, I wouldn't be able to afford one. For the National Health Service, I'm not too sure. I think it's basically, obviously my granddad had one. That was off Tristan Nurse, I think. She actually bought it to the house. I don't know how to actually go about getting one of those. But, I mean, if I had the money for a nebulizer, I'd actually go out and buy one tomorrow. To get out of here and to get into a place with a garden so the kids can run wild, it'd be lovely, especially for Paul. He'd love it. And to get away from the busy road with the car fumes, I think that might actually help Paul.
Specifically, we show in the report that people in social classes 4 and 5 are twice as likely as people in social classes 1 and 2 to be disabled by asthma.
I can remember the last time I was in hospital, my dad had to ring an ambulance for me, and the ambulance driver came along, and I was having these new injections in me. I had injections all over my abs. I was having the actual mask, and it was just, it didn't scare me at all, and the actual ambulance driver said to me, well, I never realised that people with asthma as severe as you could cope with it like this. And that was his exact words.
Today, Jonathan's going to a holiday camp for young asthmatics. His mother found out about it through her local asthma group.
My position in society is an advantage if there's health problems, because I can actually move through the system and get, I believe, a better care because of that, because I can talk to the medical profession at a knowledgeable level, and they will accept and appreciate the knowledge that I have. And I think, and I'm almost sure that that is a great advantage to me and to the children and to Jonathan.
I'm not moving until I swap out my abs, wow.
Going on one of these holidays means that they can get themselves involved in doing activities that they otherwise would not have an opportunity to do. They can also meet other children in a similar situation to them and not have to feel in any way uncomfortable or marginalised because they have a disease.
Now, this is the hard part.
Look, we have to look for Rama. Grab it. Hey. Let's go. My arms are going.
Yeah, I'm awake, yeah.
I've known nights where I've gone to bed and cried because I've been thinking to myself, why is it me? Why is it me? Why do I have to have asthma?
Stop. I'll make your feet go to the webbing, right?
Take it the other way round.
No.
Yeah?
I've learned to cope with it now. You see, asthma is my lifestyle. Oh, I've always had asthma. I probably always will have asthma, but it will get better over the years, and I understand that.
Got it. Are you sure?
Yep.
Wait, I've just come to... You're right. I'll wash out. It's a lot of sticks. Yeah, Karen.
Right. So, can you just tell me the story about this custard again?
Right, we went looking for some food to throw, or some.
It's not funny, by the way, so you can take the smile off your
I'm
face.
not smiling. We went into the...
Yeah, I'll tell you it. We went to get some food, yeah, to throw at Gaynor because it's a birthday and we wanted to have a laugh.
Right.
And one of the...
Even at the camp, everyone has to be careful. An apparently harmless prank could trigger off a lethal asthma attack. You never know who's allergic to what, including dried
Who's got
milk.
the stuff out of the cupboard?
I did.
Right. Okay. I'm not happy with what you've been doing. You
We're
had been
trying
told...
to have a laugh, Hillary.
Can I talk? I know you're trying to have a laugh, and I know it's all about having a laugh, but you've got custard powder. And in that, there's things like dried milk that people react to. And the way it was being chucked around, it could have got on anyone's skin, all right, and it could have sent them off into a really bad reaction. You don't know that Gaynor's not allergic to it. You can go down and say sorry. What else?
So dinner tomorrow.
Pardon?
So dinner tomorrow.
Or help do washing up tomorrow,
Yeah,
I think.
help washing up tomorrow.
Yeah, do washing up tomorrow, yeah, do wash up, wash
No,
up.
because I've got allergic reaction to washing up liquid.
Yes, have I.
So you can dry
Have
up.
I?
I can't
Yeah,
use tea
yeah.
towels because they might wash their stuff in different sort of personal stuff.
Yeah.
That's coming out with them.
We didn't mean to nick it, Hillary. We were only...
No, you were there by accident, Jonathan. It's very, very important if you have asthma. It's really important to understand about the illness and to learn how to take control of it. To know, for example, what sorts of things give you symptoms, what sorts of things make you ill, and take whatever steps you can to avoid those trigger factors. It's also important to understand, to work with the doctor or the nurse who's looking after you and to understand what the medication you're being prescribed means, why you're being prescribed it and when you should take it. Because there is an awful lot of ignorance around and mistaken decisions being taken sometimes about what medication to take when.
And the weather today, mostly hot and sunny. Imagine that. Thundery showers in the southwest, and the next couple of days still mostly hot and dry.
I think we could just record one weather forecast on Monday and use it, right?
As today's report makes clear, many asthmatics live quite normal lives. But there are still tens of thousands who are often prisoners in their own homes, especially at the height of summer.
I had an awful attack when I think I was about 20. I was living in London. I remember going to bed and I remember I'm always wheezy of a night anyway. And I remember waking up and thinking, this isn't just asthma, this is terrible. And I remember thinking this time, God, I do need hospital. And I just couldn't reach the phone. I had pins and needles in the whole of my body. It was so frightening. And I just didn't know what to do. I just felt like somebody was tightening a rope around my throat and it was just not going to end. And yeah, I wished myself dead that night. I really did. And it seemed to last forever, not being able to breathe. I just felt I was choking.
Debbie's been asthmatic since she was 3, but 12 years ago she developed brittle asthma, the rarest and most serious kind.
Brittle asthma is a very special form of severe asthma, and really what characterises it is that attacks will be very severe. They'll come on very suddenly indeed, and when they do come on, there will be very, very short amount of time in which to get medical attention. For some people it can be as little as an hour.
They'll want you back in there.
Asthma's ruined my life. There are so many things that I'd love to be able to do. I mean, things that people take for granted every day of the week. going for a walk in the park on a beautiful day like today. I can do that, no problem. I want to spend the next 3 days in bed.
Why doesn't seem to be any point anymore?
24 hours a day, Debbie has to wear a special pump, feeding in a drug to dilate her airways.
What it actually does, it's an infusion of Bricanyl that goes through that tube into a little needle in my stomach, and you really don't want to see that. It's not actually painful to wear, it's not uncomfortable. It's a bit daunting when you first have them, but this actually pumps the drug through constantly over the 24 hours.
The heat has trapped Debbie inside all summer. Today's the hottest day of the year, 92 in the shade. But she's going to brave the heat wave to be bridesmaid at her only sister's wedding.
I actually said no at first. I really didn't want to be a bridesmaid because there's too many things that go through your mind. Things like sort of having an attack in the church, having to take your inhaler or being too ill to stand up. And I just didn't want to ruin my sister's day. And obviously that's still frightening me now. These are actually the ampules that go into my pump. So obviously I've got a few extra of those just in case anything breaks. 2 spare needles for my stomach, just in case. My 3 inhalers there, well, 4, because it's my hay fever one as well. I have to take sort of that twice a day, and this about 22 times a day. But yeah, I can't go anywhere without those. Steroids, which obviously I will not forget. They have actually been boosted a little bit this morning. Syringes, obviously for the pump. Always take a few spare because anything can happen. The needles, obviously to draw up the ampules. Caps, that's just in case, and obviously when I'm in the church I'm going to have to cap it so that nothing comes out. It's basically just so that I can take the needle out in the church and attach that to the end so nothing leaks out of it. So always take a few of those with me. A micropore to make sure I'm stuck down properly. Oh, hay fever tablets, which have already been taken as well. What are these? Oh, those are for the night tablets to stop my cramp. But a spare battery for my pump just in case. And I've got all my sterets and the op sites in there just in case I have to change needles or anything. And that's my case for my pump for tomorrow because today it'll be worn in a thing to match my dress. I've also got inhalers in my handbag and my clutch bag because they're for in the church. And then obviously don't go anywhere without my nebuliser. That's all been cleaned, so that has been used twice this morning already, and no doubt will be used a lot more during today before 3 o'clock. And that is my weekend drugs. Well, I'll see you shortly, love. Might as well bring it open.
Debbie's arrived at her sister's. The wedding's in 3 hours.
I haven't got real flowers because obviously I'm allergic to them. So we've got all artificial, well, silk flowers. And rather than carry a bouquet, obviously we thought just to get some silk ones and put them on a bag. But flowers, pollens and things, trees, grasses and that I'm allergic to, so try and avoid those when I can. As I say, I hope nobody walks in with youth tube perfume on because I'll be going straight back out the church.
I don't really know. She's there. I
was going to say, don't drink it.
Debbie's been worried about actually making it to the aisle, making it to the service for weeks. She was in hospital like 2 weeks ago, which was out of the blue, and I think that was a build-up of stress and everything for it. But she is... The only conversations we've had, she's really, really worried that she's going to get halfway there and just not be able to go through with it. And I think that is on her mind more than anything.
Yeah.
Debbie must stay calm. If she gets anxious about her asthma, she could trigger off an attack.
Being bridesmaids with other people is probably just a simple thing that to them is very exciting and that they'd love to do. Unfortunately for me, it's very frightening and it's like, now I know I'm getting wheezy. And I'm just hoping to God it doesn't happen in the church. But can I walk in them? This is the question.
You shall go to the ball.
Good God, no. I'm wishing the weather had cooled down a bit, things like that. It's, you know, as I say, other people look forward to it and it's probably just excitement, whereas myself, it's just fear. No, well, actually, I'm going to have a few more vodkas, then I can just stagger up, can't I, and I won't notice whether they've got heels or not.
2 hours now to go before the wedding. Debbie seems very, very calm, but then that is Debbie. She can put on a tremendous act, but I think deep down I feel a little bit nervous. I know she's far more nervous than I have been or will be at all today.
I am a little bit jealous today. Not so much jealous because I don't want that to sound cruel, but I suppose I envy her that she can have a normal life, that obviously she's getting married, and I know before long my sister will probably have children, and that is going to make me very jealous. Perhaps I shouldn't say that either. Because I can't have children, I don't begrudge anybody else having children, but I think I'll find it very difficult the day I do find out she's pregnant.
To me, it seems that everything good happens to me. I get the steady job, I'm getting married and I can have children if I want to. Debbie at the moment can't have any of those. She can't work, and Debbie's not a non-worker. She loves to work. That's taken so much away from her with her illness. The fact that she can't have children, Debbie just revolves around children. She loves them, they love her wherever she goes. And it bothers me. I feel sometimes I hold back and I don't want to get excited over things because I feel as though I'm not rubbing it in, but as though I'm rubbing in the fact that I can do it all and she can't.
Debbie had a hysterectomy after complications arose during an acute illness. She feels her long-term use of asthma drugs was a contributory factor.
It was just horrific to be told at 27 that, no, you can't have a child. You know, this is it. It was as though it's the end of my world, you know, you don't feel like a complete woman. I felt very, very angry, very, very sort of, why me? God's given me this bad, brittle asthma. He's given me hay fever, he's given me eczema and loads of other problems, and now this. Perhaps I don't know, perhaps it's God's way of telling me that I wasn't fit enough to look after a child with the way my health is now. I don't know, but it's something that will always live with me.
She's never going to find anybody that she can settle down with that will understand her problems and put up with the mood swings, because I don't understand her. And I think Mum is the only person that understands Debbie. And I've got no patience at all, and I get so impatient with her because one minute she's laughing and joking, she's fine, the next minute she's suicidal. And I don't know how to cope with that.
This is unfortunately why it takes me so long to get ready every time I have to go out.
Debbie doesn't want to wear her pump over her bridesmaid's dress, but detaching it is risky, so she has to keep it close at hand. By filling the syringe now, she can discreetly reattach it once the service is over.
Obviously I want to do that here because it will be a bit awkward in the hall or things when you've got people there worrying about sort of what you're doing with needles and syringes. I've got the shakes a little bit. That's not actually nerves. It is in fact the Bricanyl, because it does give you the shakes sometimes. And as you see, I'm unconnected now for about 2 hours. So, no mishaps. And I should be plugged back in straight after the photographs. Well, it went without a hitch so far. Sneakily took me inhaler there, which I don't think anybody noticed. I told you it'd all go well. It's nearly over and we've had no problem. Don't speak too soon. I'm going to faint.
No, that's it.
Debbie made it through her sister's wedding, but the effort cost her dear. 5 weeks later, she's back in hospital.
No. How was the last night?
I slept.
You slept all
Yeah.
night. That's good news, isn't it? Because you weren't getting any sleep over the last few nights.
No, I've had about over 4 hours sleep, so
Oh,
I
that's
feel a
good.
lot better.
So we can safely give you the sleeping tablets for the next few nights.
Oh my God, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a bit wheezy, but...
Bit wheezy, right. And this news...
Heartlands Hospital in Birmingham is home to the country's leading clinic for the treatment of brittle asthma. Debbie and her fellow sufferers spend much of their lives here in Ward 10.
It's getting some sleep, it's helping. I wouldn't like to blame it on the weddings. I wouldn't like my sister to feel that it's her fault that I've ended up in here. But yeah, I do think I haven't slept well for sort of weeks and weeks before the wedding as well, which doesn't help. So I think I've got so tired out. It probably was a lot to do with the wedding and other factors as well.
Hi there.
Hi.
Also in Ward 10 is Dola Salim, hospitalised 20 times in the past 2 years.
Just settle a little bit down.
But your breathing looks a lot better now. You're not so
Yes,
breathless.
well,
and easy now.
yesterday my picture was 200.
Her illness has had a devastating effect on Dola and her close-knit Muslim family.
The role of a wife, of a Muslim woman in my religion is cooking, all those kind of things really, cooking, looking after the children, everything, which is all the things which I can't do. So really, I am not doing what I should be doing because of my illness.
For over 5 weeks, Dola's children have had to cope without her.
You thirsty? Where's the cup? When my mum has an asthma attack, it's quite scary because got a big problem trying to stop the little ones from getting scared as well. So you gotta try and comfort them, like saying that, it's only mum's only having a little dream. She's gonna wake up and she's only tired. You gotta help more. You gotta help around more. You gotta act more like an adult than a teenager or just a child can. Yes,
you're still a child, but inside you when your mother's not there.
You got the mind of an adult.
Inside you when your mother's not there. It's you. You're the mother. You're the mother that's got to look after the children. You're their mother. You've got to look after them. You've got to help them. Even though you're a child, you've got to help them, They need help. They're still babies. They need help as well.
They
as
don't
much as we
understand
do. Yeah.
My children are not coping very well, especially the little one. They're always asking for their mommy, of course, which is normal. And my husband's got to reassure them that mommy's in hospital, but she'll be home very soon.
I love you, baby. You love mommy? I missed you so much. Did you miss me? Did you miss me? Did you miss mommy? Can mommy have some? Can I have some? No, give me some. And a kiss. A kiss for mommy. Give mommy a kiss.
Joanna Deely, another brittle asthma patient, died at Heartlands 3 days ago.
It frightened me. It frightened me horrifically, to be told, obviously. I saw her go down to theatre, and a couple of hours later, we were told that, she wasn't coming back. And my asthma was terrible afterwards, which was obviously the shock. But to me personally, I thought, oh God, why? I've unfortunately been in a position where I have had a respiratory arrest, but very luckily, the doctors brought me back. Joanna had that happen a few times, but this time it didn't. So yeah, it does frighten me. I've sat there for the last few nights, look, God, is it going to be me next?
It has made me wonder, will I be next? And I had dreams of me being buried and my children being around me, crying their eyes out. And that's a picture which I've got. But I just got to try to accept it. And what I'm trying now to do is that as soon as I go out there, take a day at a time with the children and enjoy it to the full. And I really mean to the full.
Not everybody who has asthma dies from asthma. There are over 3 million people with asthma in this country, and they don't all die from it. But there are still 6 people dying from asthma attacks every day, and that's far too many, especially as research has shown that 80% of those deaths are probably preventable. That means that about 1,500 people a year are dying unnecessarily from asthma. Now, we want people to know that asthma is serious, to recognise that it can kill, because by recognising that, I think that people will take their asthma seriously and take the measures that they need to look after themselves.
Asthma kills. Killed my 12-and-a-half-year-old baby. Started with a little tickle and a little cough and a little pretty coloured inhaler, and it kills. It was about 6:15. Emily came in, and she didn't look well at all, and her face was going blue. And I rushed upstairs. I mean, I don't normally tend to panic, but I panicked, and I rushed up to get her nebulizer. And I can remember flinging open the drawers and then pulling the nebules out and rushing down again, and fixing the kit up, and then putting the mask on her face. And it was working, but there was no response from her whatsoever. And nothing. It wasn't working. Something. So put it aside, and I got her down onto the rug in front, and we started to push on her. She wasn't breathing. I tried to feel her pulse. I mean, it's very difficult to find a pulse for an amateur anyway, but I couldn't find anything at all. Her face was going blue. Her lips were going much darker blue. My son Oliver, he was on the telephone. He was brilliant. He was on the telephone. Our 999 emergency doctor, GP, everybody come very, very quickly. Then started to give Emily mouth-to-mouth respiration, and then holding her nose and sort of her head back at the right angle, and then pushing on her chest, but there was no response. There's certain areas where I find it very painful to go. We have a small pool, and I go up there, and it echoes with her shrieks of laughter, and her shouts, and her taunts, and her jokes. My daughter's life, just gone, vaporised. She's just disappeared into space.
There's a Channel 4 booklet with sources of help and further information for those suffering from or caring for people with asthma. For a copy, please send a cheque or postal order for £1 payable to Channel 4 to Take a Deep Breath, P.O. Box 4000, London W5 2GH.